love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, guys? Leyton here for UFC Gambling Addicts. Coming at you with another breakdown. The giveaway is available again, obviously. Just to go over how to be in the giveaway, you must pick 5 fighters who are going to win. You've got to select a round and method, and your 5th pick has to be the main event. That card that we just saw was absolutely crazy. Betting wise, not good at all. But, you know, as a fan, that was just an amazing card, like 7 underdogs, I believe. Pure crazy. And my love for the sport only grows with an insane card like that. Enjoy the breakdown, and yeah, peace.
And welcome to episode 38 of UFC Addicts. My name is Aaron. As always, I'm here with my co-host Lynn, and we're here to recover from a rough card and break down the latest card, that being UFC on ESPN 4 from San Antonio, Texas, USA, between Rafael dos Anjos and Leon Rocky Edwards. So we got a good main event here and some interesting fights throughout the night here on ESPN, the regular edition. Before we jump into those, we're going to break down the previous card, which we both struggled. And as always, I'm here with my co-host Leyton.
What's up, bro? What's up? Okay, so crazy card, insane card. I've got a lot to say on it, but I don't want to waste too much time, so I'm going to quickly run through the highlights of the night for me. Jonathan Martinez, that stepping knee TKO was unbelievable. Ryan Hall was just a magician, a wizard. Andre Fili looked really good. John Allen, biggest upset of the night. Josh Emmett, you know, you all felt it, but you know, it still happened. Nasty TKO. Uriah Faber and the main event, for me, a little bit early on the stoppages, both of them. But I do believe both fighters were hurt quite a bit. You know, those punches, the Ricky Simone one, it landed in a very awkward place on the forehead, like in the corner of his head. And the ref really didn't help with basically stepping in pretty much straight away. He was on his knees. Just ready to stop it, not really allowing Ricky Simone to, you know, prove he's okay. But yeah, really weird punch, landed in an awkward place. And the main event, you know, same thing. It was just a clean punch. And, you know, some people are a little bit, you know, they don't like the stoppage, should have gave her a few more seconds. But at the same time, I believe Aspen Ladd was hurt, and the way she was on her knees and facing away from Jermaine Durandame was the sign that it was done. So, like I said, a little bit early, but both of them were hurt.
So here's what I'll say. No secret to anybody who kind of knows me. I'm a huge Ricky Simone fan. So I'm not going to focus on particularly that. I'm just going to focus on overall the idea of an early stoppage, and why, even though I cry for it sometimes, I look at that the same way as I look at people who say that Jorge Masvidal landed a lucky knee, or any fighter lands a lucky strike to get a KO. Mm-hmm. The way that you avoid an early stoppage is you don't get hit. Anytime you get hit, you're taking a risk of your legs, your body not responding to getting hit well. Mm-hmm. And after that happens, it's not in your control. The fights don't get stopped if you're on the feet. Like, if you get hit with one shot in the feet, you're not going to get it stopped, right? Mm-hmm. But if you get knocked down, if you get hit in the side of the head, as Ricky Simone did, and even though he was pulling, you know, a little bit of butterflies, he really did allow for Uriah to get into a position where it could be justified a stoppage. And I'm only seeing cries about the Jermaine Durandame stoppage, which is interesting, but I think that's because the crowd was booing, and the commentating actually pointed it out. But that's my own opinion. I've probably said too much at this point. But congratulations to Uriah and to Jermaine. Durandame has to fight Nunes next. And that's really the only, I think, option here for Nunes at this point, too. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, she has said she wants that rematch. So that is, it makes sense.
It's the only person to be in the UFC. It was in her debut.
Mm-hmm.
So
makes sense.
For some reason, they don't want to mention that Jermaine Durandamy is 46-0 kickboxing, and they don't really want to build her up as they have with like a 16-time world boxing champion in Holly Holm or other fighters for whatever reason. But now the UFC, and even Dana White said it was an early stoppage. But when Aspen Ladd showed up at those weigh-ins, there has to be some sort of awareness from the referee that this girl's not taking shots well. And the very first shot she takes, she went down.
Uh-huh.
I mean, she was compromised. Prepare better if you're Aspen Ladd, and you don't maybe have no fluid in your brain. You can take more than one shot. But it was a clean right. Same with the clean right that put down Ricky Simone. So don't get it lost here. But and then Ryan Hall. All of a sudden, everybody loves Ryan Hall's style. So MMA fans are weird, man. Myself, one of them, but just a weird bunch. That Ryan Hall can fight the same style for several fights, get ridiculed, booed, lambasted, and everything, and then I guess they prefer it now and they like it. I just saw a headline from Brendan Swab that said that he's the best defensive 145er is Ryan Hall.
Well,
so,
well, he says he's the best defensive 145er. I feel like he's basically trying to say he's extremely awkward. Like, I don't know about best defensive 145er, but his style makes it seem like he's very defensive because it's, you want to attack him, but then he's going to roll. And then when you give him space, he throws the spinning kick. So it's just his style.
Do you feel that's stalling at all?
Sorry?
Do you feel that's stalling, or do you feel his tactic is effective?
It's effective in a way that his opponent...
Stalling's effective too, so those could be one and the same answer. But,
yeah, so ahead. Like, the ref telling you to stand up like 10 times around, it could, be classed as stalling. But he's actively looking for the heel hook as well. So at the same, it's a bit of both. It's just a really awkward style. It can be beat. It will be beat. But right now, Ryan Hall definitely improved those spinning kicks. And to say he dropped Darren Elkins with a jab,
let's jump into this week with a bantamweight fight between, I believe, it is Domingo Pilarte and Felipe Corrales. Am I saying that correctly?
Corrales, yep.
It's wonderful. Right, yeah. Wonderful. I will be breaking down Mr. Domingo, Son of Fire Pilarte, which great nickname, and he is from one of our favorite things, the Contender Series. So Domingo Pilarte, 6 foot 135er, so super tall for the division and a weakness of mine until they get KO'd by an overhand right in 15 seconds, like someone I'll be breaking down later. 8-1 overall, 2 TKOs, 5 submissions, 4 of which being by armbar. And he's, like I said, a tall southpaw bantamweight, so he's awkward, he's got good length, and he's got some good power at the weight. He has a rear naked choke win over Vince Morales on the Contender Series, where he spent a lot of time on his feet and looked pretty in control. But towards the end of the round, actually, Morales started to take over and almost put him out. And then in the second round, landed some good kicks from Morales' body. Honestly, he fights very tall and straight up, and reminds me a lot of his style and just his stance of Luke Rockhold. Just really upright, sends that left kick to the body a lot, kind of a karate stance a little bit, but straight up. Seems to have well-rounded skills, and looks to stay at length. I want to see him throw more combos. He throws a lot of single shots, both with his kicks and his, he throws a big left and uppercut. He has a good left, straight and uppercut. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, in the Contender Series, he got hurt against Vince and dropped at the end of the first, nearly put away, and then finished him in the second. So I think that was one that Pilarte gained a lot of experience from. Hadn't fought in over a year since suffering an injury, so that's one thing I'm not crazy about. Also, his corner basically was saying to him, man up. That's what they said in the corner in between rounds. And it did work, but it kind of makes me worried a little bit that this guy's camp could eventually be one of the reasons that he has trouble at this level. So I do think he gets a round 2 TKO here, so I'm excited to see Pilarte. I think that he may rely on his wrestling a little bit in this fight, and that he could, if he starts to struggle, but I like Pilarte for a round 2 TKO.
Nice. Nice. I agree with pretty much all of that. Okay, Felipe Caceres. 0-1 inside the UFC, 8-1 as a pro, just like Pilarte. So looking at this guy's debut, he was pretty much outclassed, outworked, just outstruck pretty much the whole fight. But I'm more focused here on Pilarte, and your breakdown of him was pretty much spot on in my opinion. That Contender Series fight, if you've been a listener of this channel, you probably would have heard me say that Contender Series fight is one of my favourite fights. Pilarte was a plus 300 in that fight. And just like you said, he was rocked a couple times, he was hurt a couple times, but he never gave up. And, you know, one thing I really noticed was he is very confident in his ability. Like, he was egging Morales on in that fight, with blood on his face, and, you know, he was just confident that he was going to do something or make something happen. And then we saw that in the second round with that rear naked choke. And it was just unbelievable. Like, they rolled about 4 or 5 times. Morales just wouldn't tap. And Pilarte was not going to let go of that choke. So, you know, interesting fight. But I'm more focused on Pilarte here. Caceres is stepping down from 145. But I think this could probably be a tougher fight than his debut. So I'm going to take a round 2 with you, but I'm going to take a submission for Pilarte in round 2.
Okay. Yeah, I just thought maybe because Caceres has some decent jiu-jitsu skill, if I remember correctly from my research, I just thought maybe Pilarte would look to maybe keep it on the feet a little more. I think that a lot of that confidence has to do with a 6-foot man fighting guys who are 5'6" or so. So it's like there's just that tall man confidence against these little guys. So
AKA Corey Sanhagen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. It is a very similar approach. He's got kind of that slick kind of Brazilian jiu-jitsu style of the longer guy too. And Sanhagen, I think he should hope to shoot for that level of bantamweight. He's off it. But
I'm so psyched that Corey stepped down to 135 because he looks so big there.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the guys. The odds are minus 300 for Pilarte, plus 230 for Caceres. I see him up to plus 275 on certain sites. So,
wow,
a little high, but at the same point, I think that Pilarte, they've been waiting for his debut for about a year, and I think he's a legit prospect at 135. So we'll see. But a little high for a guy making his debut ever for me. But still, I can see the logic.
Yeah, it's a little higher, but wow. Okay.
And this is my first time looking at the odds here, so I'm not faking surprise. I actually just straight up didn't look at the odds ahead of time. So just seeing them here on the screen here, I'm already a little surprised with the next fight's odds. So
yeah, I mean, he looked good in the Contender Series, and I'm excited that he's making his debut, but -3 is a little bit of pressure. But yeah, moving on to Mario Bautista and Jin Soo Sun, and I'll be breaking down Sun. Comes into this fight 0-1 inside the UFC, and I remember breaking this guy down on our channel. You know, we was pretty new. I can remember saying I haven't seen much tape on him. I don't really know what to expect. And then we see his debut. You know, he lost that fight against Peter Yan, but if no one's seen, like, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen that fight, and you've got Fight Pass, just go watch Peter Yan versus Sun, because that is one of my favourite fights in the last 2 years. Like, it is such a good fight. Both guys just trading strikes in the phone booth. And Sun, you know, he just looked like a robot. Like, he got cracked with some shots, and there was no way he was going down. And he even cracked Peter Yan a few times, and it was like, wow, how are these guys still trading? It was one of my favourite fights. Please go watch that fight if you haven't seen it. So yeah, this is, you know, an interesting fight. Mario Bautista debuted against Corey Sanhagen, and you'll go into what happened there. So both guys 0-1. I just feel like one guy got destroyed pretty much in his debut, and one guy lost but looked very impressive. So, yeah, I'm basically deciding off of debuts here. I like what I saw from Sun. So I'll give him a TKO. I'll take Jin Soo Sun via TKO in round number 2.
Fair enough, fair enough. I will be breaking down Mr. Mario Bautista, the 5'9" bantamweight out of MMA Lab, one of my favorite camps. 26-year-old is 6-1, 2 TKOs, 3 submissions. He's 0-1, losing to Corey Sandhagen by armbar in a very tough debut where he was a plus 450 underdog. Didn't get much of a chance to show what he had. Sandhagen looked great in there, and Bautista looked a little bit overwhelmed, both from a size and just overall skill standpoint. Good news for him here, he's facing a similarly sized bantamweight in Soon here. Bautista I would describe as a blitzer, so charges forward at times, throws punches in bunches, and then looks for a takedown. So he's got good top control when obtaining it, has a variety of choke subs, and definitely fights like a guy out of the MMA Lab. Like they really have started to develop a certain prototype of fighter to me. Jin is coming off that decision loss, as you said, to Jan, where he was a plus 700 in that fight. Definitely didn't fight like it. Mm-hmm. He was really showed a lot. He showed a lot of toughness and smiles, but also, it appeared to be a rough weight cut for Soon. He kind of staggered as he got onto the scale. So that's something I kind of look for in this fight, is that how much he's sacrificing to get down to 135. He's a pretty strong looking bantamweight, but he may be sacrificing quite a bit to get down there, and it may be coming through in his performances. So I think, honestly, I think Bautista has way more offense than Soon Sun. And I think he will have to avoid the takedown shots from Jin and his reach. But I think Mario gets a decision win, actually.
Nice. So
I'm actually going to disagree with you. I can see in the fight Son leaning on him a lot and kind of controlling him against the cage. Maybe Mario just being a little bit outsized again, which it appeared in his debut. But I think Mario actually is able to establish the offense, and that toughness becomes kind of what's synonymous with Jin Soon Sun. And toughness often loses you some fights as well as wins you fights. But I think that Mario's going to definitely not feel he showed anything in his debut. So if it's based on the debuts, I would go with Sun too. I am anticipating that Jin had maybe his best performance in what will end up being a loss to Peter Yan, and from here he won't even look that good. So we'll see. I'm anticipating Mario looks much better in his sophomore debut, and I'm anticipating if Jin looks maybe as good as Yan in his debut, that won't be good enough. So I'm going to take the underdog in Bautista here. I know he's an underdog because I checked it out as I was looking up the odds for Pilarte. So Jin Soon Sun minus 210 favorite.
Ooh.
Plus 180 underdog for Mario Bautista.
Yeah, just like the first fight, a little bit too high. Could be closer to like minus 170.
Yeah.
But based on your opinion of Bautista, maybe a little bit of a change in the lines closer to fight night.
I just think that Bautista is a wrestler. He looks to get top control and then rain down elbows from up top. And I think that if he looks to initiate the grappling before, I think whoever looks to initiate the grappling first may have the better luck if they're not able to put him down on the feet in the first round. So I'm happy taking that underdog, but that's our first disagreement of the night. And we are moving on to, is this our third straight bantamweight fight to start out the event?
Yep, it is.
Weird. It just adds to the weirdness. Between Ray, the Taz Mexican Devil, Borg, and Gabriel Gabito Sanchez, I believe, or Gabito Silva, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I will be breaking down Ray Borg. Only 25 years old, which I just found shocking. He must have gotten in the UFC at 21 or so. So he's 5'4", 135er, former 125er who missed weight in his bantamweight debut. A lot of reasons for that that you can look up and listen to interviews with Ray Borg. I won't go over them here. He's 11-4 overall, 5-4 in the UFC. Currently on a 2-fight losing streak, coming to Demetrius Johnson way back with that crazy armbar. And then he lost to Chase Kenny. And in between those, he had a plethora of canceled bouts for a variety of reasons, between injuries, weight issues, and other reasons. Ray Borg seems like he's been around forever, but he's only 25. He has wins over guys like Formiga, Luis Smolka, and a few other not so notable but decent wins. He's definitely mostly a grappler. He had a lot of a strength advantage, especially at flyweight, and he's had that a little negated since being at bantamweight, between the higher weight and the lack of a reach, I think. He's kind of had trouble in his bantamweight debut, so we'll see here. But he is fighting a fellow 5'4" guy in this fight, so that may not be an issue. I think that Borg needs to look to maintain pressure and control the center. Can't have his back to the fence. I think he needs to make sure Gabito, he doesn't allow Gabito to move forward and establish those strikes, because I think that could be a way that Silva can put him away. When Borg is not in control, he struggles. It's kind of simple as that, and that may sound like an obvious thing to say, but really what I've seen from my tape. And he struggles on the feet, and he struggles when he's put on his back. He was out-wrestled by Justin Scoggins. He was, and Justin Scoggins, who had a lot to offer on the feet, really just froze up Borg. Like I said, I'd like to see more aggression out of Borg, and I'm just not sure if he has it, and especially at this weight. He's definitely a technician with his wrestling, like I said, and I'll take that to be a difference against the newcomer. So I look for him to really control the wrestling and edge out a decision, but I'd like to see him have more emphasis on his overall offense in this fight. But I'll take Borg by decision.
Nice. Okay, Gabriel Silva comes into this fight 7-0 as a pro, fighting out of Team Nogueira, so a decent camp. For anyone who doesn't know about this kid, I'm sure we're all learning about this guy debuting at this point. For anyone that doesn't know, this is actually Eric Silva's little brother. So, the UFC are liking what they see. I'm liking what I see out of this guy. He has competed at 145. So maybe he's going to be more comfortable fighting at 135 here. Ray Borg, you went into small detail with his issues in his personal life, and that it really did kind of look that way when he fought at 135 against Casey Kenny. You was talking about just being in control of fights, and he really wasn't in control of that fight. I think if I remember rightly, I did score him 29-28 to win that fight, but I remember it being close as well. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so he came in overweight at 135 as well, which is surprising. And yeah, this is a weird, tough fight to predict, because it could, the betting line is favouring Ray Borg with, a lot of people saying the experience, the grappling, the pressure, and that could be the case. But if I'm judging this guy based off of what I've just seen at 135, it doesn't look like the Ray Borg that that competed with Demetrius Johnson. That Ray Borg did lose to DJ, but for 25 minutes or right up into the armbar, he competed. So, looking at Ray Borg last fight and that Ray Borg, there's a big difference. And this is a tough one because, if you're Gabriel Silva and you want to make a name off of anyone debuting at 135, it's probably Ray Borg at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna take the newcomer. I'm gonna take Gabriel Silva to be able to control the octagon and make it a close fight. So yeah, wow. 2 disagreements, 1 underdog each.
Interesting.
This is shaping up.
Your underdog is more of an underdog than mine.
It is. I've got the biggest dog on the card, I believe.
He's one of the biggest dogs on the card that I can see from the 5 fights I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Plus 215 underdog.
Nice.
For Gabriel Silva. Ray Borg at nearly minus 300 at minus 275.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree with Ray Borg being a favourite, but -3 is a little bit mad from his last
go back.
performance.
So one of the cool things about Tapology, I've left Sure Dog in the past at this point, is that you can, when you look at the bout details, it'll tell you what Borg has been favored at in a lot of his fights, and he just has had these pretty heavy favorites in some of his fights where he's been -4 or so, and he's come through in those fights. When he's been closer to an even pick, those are the fights he's struggled in. But when he's been a good favorite, he's tended to come through and show why. But that's unscientific. But Gabriel Silva's cutting an extra 10 pounds for his UFC debut. While you said he may be more comfortable in there, he also may be less comfortable in there, having 10 less pounds at 135. So I'm thinking if he's 5'4" and playing at 145, he's not the biggest fan of dieting. And judging from his brother, that could be an issue. So we'll see. We may have two guys struggling to make weight. Let's see if Borg claims he's more focused now. We'll see. But you want to move us on to our next fight, the steak fight?
Yes, and this fight's at 125.
Steak fight.
Okay, so Roxanne Modafferi versus Jennifer Maia. Who am I breaking down here? Jennifer Maia. Okay.
Not Maia, fortunately.
Okay, so... wait, I'm breaking down Maia?
Yes.
Okay, so Jennifer Maia, 1-1 inside the UFC. You look at her debut against Liz Carmouche and, basically outclassed by a veteran, the trips, the top control. Jennifer Maia basically didn't look ready to grapple. She is a bit of a nasty striker. She's got heavy hands, fires the body kick and the calf kick. And she sits down on her punches a lot. When she throws, it's because she's planted and she's looking to really hurt you. Against Alexis Davis, better than the debut. She definitely landed some of those hooks and overhands, even body kicks. But same kind of thing. She was taken down in that fight, held against the fence quite a bit. Got the win. It was a close one. But yeah, this is a really tough fight to predict because if you're looking at Jennifer Maia's 2 fights in the UFC, she has been taken down in both of those fights. And if I'm looking at Roxanne Modafferi here, she is one of the hardest fighters to prepare for when it comes to takedowns because her unorthodox style in pressure it is so strange. It just keeps the opponent on the back foot. And if Modafferi has you circling on the outside towards the fence, you're fighting her fight. The way to fight Roxanne Modafferi is you need to be the pressure fighter. If you've got Roxanne going backwards, you're fighting the right fight. But like I said, the main thing I said here for Jennifer Maia was she sits down on her punches. So I see one of two things happening here. She sits down on the punches and she hurts Roxanne, or she sits down on the punches, becomes a statue, and Roxanne is able to grapple. If I'm looking at her 2 fights, she's been taken down in both of them. So I'm going to have to assume that Roxanne is able to take her down and does take her down. So yeah, I'm going to favour the grappling. I'm going to say Roxanne Modafferi wins a close decision.
Yep. So I will be breaking down Roxanne, the Happy Warrior Modafferi. The 36-year-old is 23-15, 2-2 in the UFC. She's one of the pioneers of women MMA. She's been doing this for such a long time. I'm not going to lie, I find her to be one of the least explosive fighters in the UFC. I used to have in my notes one of the least impressive and least explosive fighters in the UFC. I can no longer not be impressed by this girl. I just have to give her credit. She's stuck around. Even in fights she's lost, she hasn't gotten seriously hurt. She's gotten knocked out one time, and it was on the Ultimate Fighter, from what I saw. And, she's going to look to get in there, grapple, hold on to Maia, land some elbows from the side mount. And it's going to come down if Maia is able to avoid that. If she plants or if she gets her back against the octagon, Modafferi is going to immediately press forward. If Modafferi's on her back foot, Maia wins the decision. Maia was able to keep her on her back foot in the first fight and won the decision. I've got to take it again here. I can't take Roxanne. I just can't. It's hard for me to take her. And I think Maia is going to be able to keep her on her back feet, get her to respect the striking. She's grappled with her before, and Maia knows what she has to do to win this fight. And it's avoid the Frankenstein arms of Roxanne. So, and I'm going to pick/hope that Maia does that. So we are going to disagree on this one. Probably not much of a surprise to you.
I will agree with you. It's hard to take Roxanne because she is quite one-dimensional in her unorthodox way of fighting. Like, she bops her head like she's drunk 10 coffees.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll just make the preface that for anybody listening, I do truly believe Maia's going to win. I also have never picked Roxanne in UFC. So I've been wrong twice, I've been right twice on it. But I'm not about to pick her here against an opponent that has previously beat her, and I think has felt the unorthodoxness in there. So I'm going to take Maia. You take Modafferi. Fair disagreement. That's our second of the night. Maia is the favorite at -145. Modafferi +115. In these matchups, I always prefer to have the underdog because it is completely 50-50.
Fair odds. Very fair.
Yeah, but I think, giving the slight edge to the woman who won the previous fight, which wasn't too long ago, was a split decision. I will say that was not a dominant decision at all. But I watched it back, and I thought Maia won pretty clearly. So, but fair enough, and we'll see. But I will be making my steak, so I'll be watching that fight from the kitchen as I'm judging it or not. So,
nice.
Moving on to the next fight. Here is one I'm very excited about, so I'll lead us in. And this is at 205 between Klidson, Hiroso Bronco, Farias de Abreu, and Smiling Sam Alvey. I'll be breaking down Klidson. He is now 14-3, has a broken nose, 4 TKOs and 10 subs. He's been finished by KO twice in his 3 losses, and then he just survived that thrashing against Akolov, I believe it was, and landed that spinning kick square to his nose. One thing I always like to mention with Klidson off the bat is he has a notable win by submission over Johnny Walker. He's never seen a decision until his last fight, where he really showed a lot of toughness and never gave up, which was definitely, he had plenty of reason to, coming in on very short notice, and then, like I said, getting his nose caved in by that spinning back heel kick. I was actually impressed with his stand-up game and toughness overall, and but after that spinning kick busted his nose, he definitely was just surviving in there. I assume he's recovered since then. I believe the fight was in November. So I see him actually going to a decision again here against Sam, and I'm going to say that he gets his first decision win. So I'm going to take Klidson by decision over Smiling Sam. I think it will be kind of similar to the Ankalaev fight, but a little less explosive striking and much less a worry of the grappling with facing Sam Alvey. But Sam's tough to submit and tough to put away, so I'll give him the respect of a decision.
Interesting.
Even though I'm not with since getting to 205.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Sam Alvey comes into this fight 10 wins, 7 losses inside the UFC. Primarily known as a middleweight, spent most of his career at middleweight. He has stepped up to 205, had a good start there. But now he's 2-2 at 205. I like Sam Alvey. I respect him a lot. I think he's a good fighter. But I don't think he's a light heavyweight. I really don't think he's a light heavyweight. He backs up a lot. Doesn't look comfortable taking punches from these guys. He's just slow. He has slow stepping movements when he's up against the fence. And just not aggressive enough, you know? So... yeah, I feel he's been exposed at 205. I don't think he's a light heavyweight. We look at Klidson, like you just did in his debut. Short notice against a very tough Russian. Yeah, and I believe his nose was broken and just never gave up. Never gave up. Just competed, you know, competed the whole time. He was beat up, but he competed and he never gave up. Looking at Sam Alvey again, you know, I'm saying he's not aggressive enough. He tried that against Jimmy Crute. He really came out and pressed the action and tried to force a TKO. But just, you know, it backfired, and it backfired very quickly. And it's confirmed to me even more that Sam Alvey is not a light heavyweight. Like I said, keeps his back against the fence too much and slow stepping movements, and he's struggling to take a punch off these guys. So for that reason, I'm going to take Klidson to get a TKO in round number 1. It could be a sub. I know we were speaking about that last night. Klidson could hurt him and take him down and sub him most of his wins by sub. But like you pointed out, he looked fairly decent in his debut striking. Beat up, but competed and never gave up on the feet. So for those reasons, TKO for Klidson round number 1.
Not bad. I mean, he's finished almost all his fights. Taking Klidson inside the distance is not a bad bet here at all. We'll just see. I totally respect that pick, though. Klidson is the favorite at -170, +140 for Alvey. I think that's nailed.
Yeah, that is such a fair price.
Yeah, it could be even more for Klidson, but I respect that. He's got to kind of show it first. So we're on to our next fight here at 135. You want to lead us in?
Yep. Okay, so we have... Oh, sorry.
Listen, we have Irene Aldana versus Raquel Pennington. I will be breaking down Irene Aldana, the 5'9", 135er. Is 31. She's 10-4 overall, 5 TKOs and 2 submissions. 3-2 in the UFC, winning her last 3 fights against Betch by armbar, Felita Bernardo, and then Lucy Padova, those 2 being by split decision. Irene was mostly known for boxing coming into the UFC, so she's done, I think, a pretty good job of shoring up some holes in her game after dropping her first 2 coming in. So that armbar she had on Betch was super fluid. It was a belly down armbar. Nearly broke the arm, and I have been impressed by her. She's not the most vicious of strikers, so she's definitely going to hurt you more with volume. She's going to try to outpace you, and I'm just I'm not sure that I'm not sure she's going to be able to put away Pennington, but I think she can outpace Pennington, and I think that the rounds may get further and further in closeness as they go. So even if Aldana maybe comes out and loses the first round, I see her getting stronger and her cardio coming through and winning a decision. So I'll take Aldana by decision.
Nice. Okay, so now that my token is done, I basically agree with everything you said. Raquel Pennington, so 6-4 inside the UFC. She had that 1.5-year layoff, then returned in 2018, completely destroyed by Amanda Nunes. That fight was horrible. And then basically outclassed by Jermaine de Randamie for pretty much the whole fight. So yeah, this is, if I'm going to speak about any positives for Raquel Pennington, it would probably be just grappling here. I think she has the grappling advantage. But Irene Aldana, like you said, man, she has very crisp boxing. I see her just, popping that jab out like she does. And finding more connection here than air. She does find a lot of air sometimes with those jabs, measuring the distance. But I think, you look at that Amanda Nunes return fight and the way her nose was just popped continuously by Amanda Nunes. I really believe Irene Aldana can do something similar where we're seeing Raquel Pennington return to the corner and, the middle of the face is just bloody. Yeah, that's pretty much what I see. But then we look at the Beth Correa fight, and she was arguably 2 rounds down in that fight. So she does have to make more connection here than just, reading the distance and falling behind in the fight. I don't want to see that from Irene Aldana, and we do see that sometimes. So yeah, I'm making the same read as you. I'm just hoping, that's what happens. I'm a little bit scared. Because of the card we just had, it was crazy. But I'll take Irene Aldana to win via decision.
Hey, you gotta have a short memory in the MMA prediction game, man. I had a 12-0 card. This happened.
Australia.
Yep, exactly. So I just gotta say, you gotta just get it out of your head, and you gotta keep making your reads how you make your reads, because events like last night will happen, and then events like other events where everything makes sense. But yeah, we agreed here. Anytime you can win a fight where where you have a pretty poor performance, I like those lessons more than losses. So, but either way, I think Irene looks much better, uses that jab in her boxing, and I'm just not sure how hungry Pennington has been since kind of Nunes took it out of her.
It was horrible.
Sometimes when you get to the top of the mountain like that and you have that poor of a performance, it really just lets you know I'm never going to, or makes you think I'm never going to be at that level. I'm guessing, but
I mean,
Irene...
Weird high comment, just because you said that.
Sure.
I've been watching a lot of Mount Everest recently, and a lot of people who say they reached the summit say, like, you know they're not going to perform like that going down. So, yeah, just a weird high thought there with your...
Yeah, I mean, it's it's very spot on. Like, I'm glad that you didn't say the other thing you've been watching lately. So I'm glad we talked
the
about
UFOs?
that. Yeah, right, exactly. Anyways, on to the next one. You want to lead us in?
Yeah, okay.
By the way, Irene, sorry, I'll go into the odds. I apologize. The odds are Irene Aldana minus 165. So I'm a little surprised by that. I would prefer a pick 'em.
Could be closer to like 45 or 35.
I mean, it opened at minus 145, and the money's shifted a little, so I can understand. So I'm okay with it. It's not. I'm not crazy about it, but I'm not crazy not about it either. So you want to lead us on to the first fight of the main card?
Nope, this is the last fight on the prelims, and this is Alex Caceres versus Steven Peterson. Bit of a weird matchup. I'll break into Alex Caceres. Comes into this fight 9 wins in the UFC, 10 losses and 1 draw. So in all honesty, this guy's very lucky he hasn't been cut. And
it's like a new contract too, if I remember reading correctly.
Exactly. And it's all down to his style. He comes out with his nickname's Bruce Leroy. So that's his style. And he's the type of guy that you could send to like Singapore and China and these kind of areas where they're trying to break through with the UFC. Alex Caceres with his style is that type of guy you want to send to these places against someone who's like 7-0 as a pro. And we've seen that. We've seen Alex Caceres go to these weird places. So yeah, this is a strange fight. Steven Peterson's tough as nails. He's proven that. He'll come forward all night until you switch his lights out, basically. He'll come forward with the combinations and even end up in the clinch. Alex Caceres, I'm talking about his style. He's for him to win. I'm looking at him staying on his bike, kickboxing his way to a decision. Interesting. Alex Caceres has only been TKO'd once. Now, that just proves, 9 and 10, he's got his style nailed down. So if he can fight his fight, no doubt he'll win a decision here, or even get like a head kick TKO. That's, that would be the best bet for the UFC for keeping him. But Steven Peterson, man, he's tough as nails, and I just think if he can close that distance constantly and make it anywhere close to a dirty fight, then I favour Peterson. So it's once again personal preference. Do you think Caceres is able to stay on his bike and do what he wants, or do you think Steven Peterson, is able to make it dirty and fight his fight? It's a close one, but I'm going to take Steven Peterson to be able to make it dirty and win a decision.
Okay, I will be breaking down Steven Ocho Peterson, the 5'9", 29-year-old that fights out of Texas, so this is a little bit of a hometown fight.
Is it Fortis too? Your favorite camp?
He is out of Fortis, yes, indeed. Indeed, he is. And he's 17-8 overall. He got a new contract after fighting an overweight Pena, and not doing terrible in that fight at all. But he did come up short. I mean, you pretty much nailed that breakdown. He definitely tries to push forward, maintain aggression. Skill is not his strength, I would say. And I would say for Caceres, skill is very much a strength. Technique, overall tactic is very much a strength. So I'll save time on this breakdown. I am betting that Caceres is able to stay on his bike. I'm betting that the length is the difference when it does get dirty with Peterson. I think that Caceres is significantly longer than him, both in the arms and legs particularly. They may be the same height, but I think that he's just got longer limbs, and those could make for kind of some awkward clinches where Peterson's really pushing and he's like maybe even pushing his face up and able to maintain distance that way when it does get in the clinch and negate some of that strength that Peterson will have over him. And I have Caceres just keeping it short on the feet, keeping that jab out there. I think that using Peterson's toughness against him here, because Caceres, a lot of times when Caceres is hitting guys, they don't think they're getting hit very hard, and it allows them to kind of keep getting hit. I know that may sound kind of weird, but I mean, he definitely can strike, and he definitely can stay moving here. It's going to be the big octagon; it won't be the little octagon in there. So, I'll take Caceres for a decision. So this is disagreement number 3.
Completely fair. Right? 4, I think.
Number 4. Okay. Yep. Fair enough. So I will be taking Caceres. You'll take Peterson. I have Caceres by decision. You have Peterson by decision. So not going to distance isn't a bad bet probably for this one. Minus 165 favorite in Caceres, plus 135 for Peterson. I think that's completely reasonable.
That's completely fair.
Making Peterson a favorite to win a UFC fight is going to be tough until he wins a couple, I think. So
we've seen
that. This is just I just feel like this is the kind of guy who Caceres has built his 9 wins on too. Yeah,
just in a different place.
Just these guys who are just a little too short for the division and don't have a ton of skill and aren't going to be able to really outmuscle. I mean, this is a very favorable matchup for Bruce Leroy, in my opinion.
Interesting one. Weird fight.
I'll be leading us into another weird fight here at heavyweight between Ben Rothwell and Andrei Arlovski.
This is weird.
Oh my God. This is just, why? Ben Rothwell, 37 years old. So I'm breaking down. 36-11 overall, 23 TKOs, 10 submissions. This has Ben's second fight since he was on a 4-fight finishing streak where he finished Vera, Mitrione, Barnett, and Overeem, 2 TKOs and 2 subs. He then lost the decision to JDS where he got pretty dominated, and then he pissed hot afterwards. When he came back, he was against Blagoy Ivanovic. He definitely looked several steps slower. He just wasn't able to put on a very good performance. I'm more of a fan of Blagoy than a lot of people, so he makes a lot of people just look weird and awkward in there. I don't know how he does it, but he does, and he got stabbed in the stomach. So there's that. Blagoy, but not Ben Rothwell. Back to Rothwell. It's been a while since we've seen Ben, but with all the wars and the damage he's taken over time, having those 2 years off may have been a huge benefit that we may see in this performance against Arlovski. We definitely didn't see it in the Blagoy performance, and Arlovski just keeps going, and he's 40 plus at this point, and this is just a tough one to call. I think that Ben looks to make Arlovski carry his weight at times in this fight and use wrestling a little bit, and I don't know. I guess I have Ben by decision, but he could finish him. I think on the feet it's anybody's game. But I think Ben. I think this is going to be a dirty, slow heavyweight fight, weird fight.
Nice. Okay, Arlovski. And yeah, like you said, this is a weird fight. And you know, looking at it from the UFC's point of view, you're going to get a real confirmation on which guy here who is really more done than the other guy. So it's a bit of a weird fight. Arlovski comes into this fight 6-9 inside the UFC. He's now 40 years old, and this is his 46th pro fight. Looking at Arlovski's last performance against Sakai, I took Arlovski in that fight, and I honestly felt he was robbed. He followed a good game plan, you know, and the judges just didn't understand. They had no clue how good Arlovski looked in that fight. I don't know what more he could have done other than get a TKO. Literally, like he fought such a good game plan, and he just wasn't rewarded. He wasn't rewarded with that. And I just feel like, you know, you perform that well, you avoid these big shots, and you have a good performance over 15 minutes. I just don't know where his heart is. Like you do that well, and to get that loss, it has to have killed his heart off even more. So
Yeah.
it's a really tough fight to decide, because you look at Ben Rothwell's return, and he lost that fight too, but he looked pretty good in that fight. So it's a bit of a weird one, but I just think, Arlovski had that game plan against Sakai where he stayed on his bike and it worked because he was the quicker guy and the better conditioned guy in that fight. But I don't think he can implement that game plan here with Ben Rothwell. So, to say he can't use that game plan and he executed that game plan and didn't get rewarded, to say he's not even going to be able to implement that kind of game plan here, you're basically saying he is going to eat shots in this fight. And he's taken so much damage and he just doesn't want to get hit anymore. So, even when Arlovski looks good and he fights to a game plan where he isn't getting cracked, he still isn't being rewarded. So I see him getting cracked in this one. I think Ben Rothwell is going to TKO him in round number 1.
Fair enough. Yeah, Arlovski did win the first fight back in 2008 by round 3 TKO, but that was a very long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Rothwell is the favorite here. He is a significant favorite, minus 190, plus 166 or 155, plus 155 on Bovada for Arlovski.
I mean, if you believe in Arlovski the way I did against Sakai, then take that price, because Ben Rothwell is, I'm going to say Ben Rothwell is pretty much done at this point as well. So, good price, but I have to go with Rothwell on this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Into this one at 155?
Yes. Okay, decent fight here. Francisco Trinaldo versus Alexander Hernandez. And I'll be breaking down Trinaldo. Comes into this fight 13-5 inside the UFC. Another guy who's 40 years old. And just like Cesar Ferreira last week, I think this guy's been around now for like 12, 13, maybe 14 years. And he's a good guy, he's very well rounded. I'd say he's probably underrated, maybe. And it's a strange fight, man, because if I'm taking these two guys and looking at who's better, I'm probably going to say Trinaldo. But fighting is a young man's game. And I know Uriah Faber would be like, well, it's not, because I'm 40 years old and I returned and I did that to a young, hungry guy. These things do happen. But I think at 155, if you're fighting at 40 years old at 155, that's just, you're playing with a huge inferno there, and you're going to get burnt sooner or later. And you look at what Alexander Hernandez did in that debut. Pure explosion. And just a young, hungry lion. Very athletic. And that could be the difference. But like I said, I paid respect to Trinaldo. I think he's very well-rounded and underrated. And that could be the difference also. It could be another lesson here for Hernandez. But I just think Alexander Hernandez he can be so explosive. And we saw Donald Cerrone handle that with knees and high kicks. And I just don't think Trinaldo can redo what Donald Cerrone did there. So I'm going to take the young guy in Alexander Hernandez, and I'm going to take him to get a TKO in round number 1.
Ooh, all right. I will be breaking down the great Alexander Hernandez. The 26-year-old is 10-2 overall, 4 TKOs and 2 submissions. He's 2-1 in the UFC with that TKO starch of Beneil Dariush, and then decision win, fairly impressive decision win overall with Olivier Aubin Mercier.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, a lot of people have. I mean, Mercier has lost a couple guys recently, so those wins get discounted, but he is one of the tougher guys at 155, I think, in the power area especially. Basically against Donald, he, I think, got sufficiently humbled. He did put on a good fight with Donald, in my opinion, but he got kind of pieced up a little bit by the combinations. And I think that he'll respond pretty strong here against a pretty slow and hittable opponent in Masaruba. But he's got to stay moving. He's got to use that speed. Trinaldo does have power still. This reminds me a lot of the matchup last week, actually, between Bektik and Emmett in a lot of ways, where I have Masaruba's, or, Trinaldo, as I'll just call him. Trinaldo has power. He can put away anybody if he gets one of those, if he is able to plan and throw. He's a Muay Thai champion. Mm-hmm. But I think that Hernandez will use his speed and not be as hittable as Bektik was against Emmett. So I think that Hernandez has a lot of belief. He's got good striking. He's got strong wrestling. And it's important that he uses all that in this fight. I think leading up to the Cowboy fight, he was too sure of himself and too unsure of Donald. And I hope he doesn't do that here because he's fighting a nearly 41-year-old Brazilian. And I wouldn't think he has too much animosity since Trinaldo's basically a mute. I've never heard his voice. So we'll see how Hernandez responds to that. It may be better for him or it may be less focused, but I'll say Hernandez, but I'm not going to take a finish. I'll take a dominant decision for Hernandez.
Nice.
And the odds are with Hernandez minus 170 plus 140 for Trinaldo. Stay there. Those are good.
Yeah,
perfect.
Completely fair.
Perfect odds. So good
Nice.
job so far for Texas. These odds have made sense for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I'll move us on to a absolute war at 155 between James Vick. James, is it the Texecutioner? That is the
yes.
name? That's unfortunate.
The Hangman.
Versus the Hangman. So it's the Texecutioner versus the Hangman here. And, I think somebody is going down. So James Vick, 32 years old, out of Lloyd Irvin. Jim, 13-3 overall. He's coming off back-to-back losses, a pretty brutal beatdown against Paul Felder, which was followed up, or was after the brutal KO in round 1 against Justin Gaethje, where he got absolutely blasted. It's the second time in his 3 losses where he was finished by a brutal overhand right. He also was starched by Beneil Dariush by one. So there's definitely a little bit of a hole in James Vick's striking game. Basically, you get in there early and don't let him get settled, and he leaves himself open for that overhand shot as the fight goes. I think that this is a really great matchup. I think it's a total war for however long it lasts. I don't see it going to distance regardless. I think Vick claims that he had a bad weight cut leading to his last bad performance, but it also could very well mean that as he's getting into his mid-30s, that making 155 as a 6'3" giant is getting harder and harder to do healthily and easily. So we'll see how he responds to the weight cut. Hooker appears to cut weight a little bit better here. He's a little bit younger. He's another big, taller striker. This is definitely a crossroads fight for both fighters. I'm going to take Hooker to rebound here and pick up a second-round TKO, and I don't see this fight going anywhere but staying on the feet. I'll take Hooker by second-round TKO.
Nice. Okay, Dan the Hangman Hooker comes into this fight 7 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Used to be a 145er and then stepped up to 155, and that's when a large percentage of us, really, took a look at this guy and said, wow, this guy's very good. Had a very good run at 155. Very surprising, he actually went into the Barboza fight a favourite, which was a little bit surprising to me. Coming up against, such an elite striker in Barboza. Somehow, some people saw Dan Hooker to be more elite. Not sure how. But yeah, this is a really fun fight to think about because both guys are tall, both guys are rangy, both guys primarily strikers too. So this is fun. Looking at James Vick, I pretty much agree with everything you said. One thing I will mention is, he leaves his head so high up in the air. And it's been exposed since that Justin Gaethje TKO with the overhand, like you said. It's been exposed, and I felt like in the Felder fight, he was really trying to not make that an issue, not leaving his head there. And even then, it got cracked a few times. And you're thinking, oh, God, he's going to go down to one of these strikes in a minute. But then Paul Felder switched it up. He went to the calf a lot. And James Vick was, basically in a defensive mode where he was thinking, I tried to focus on not leaving my head in one spot, and now I'm getting calf kicked. And, it just turned out to be too late in the fight for James Vick. When he tried to really go for it, the damage was done. So this is a really fun fight. James Vick has a good jab, and he's looked good. But since that exposure of the head, being left up in the air, maybe he's second guessing himself a little bit. I feel like Dan Hooker is far more comfortable with firing calf kicks and body kicks. I just think the difference here is one guy got into a position coming close to fighting for the title or being in contention. And he competed, but just outclassed by an elite striker. And James Vick, when he got there, he crumbled. But I just feel like there's going to be more of a worry here for James Vick than Dan Hooker. And I feel like that's going to show in the fight. That's the strong feeling I'm getting with this fight. I just feel one guy's going to be a little bit wary, and one guy's going to be comfortable to fire kicks and fire strikes. So for that reason, I'm going to take Dan Hooker to get a TKO in round number 2, just like yourself.
Yep, young man's game, and we're taking the young striker over the older striker. So Hooker is a minus 155 favorite, plus 125 for Mr. Vick.
Yep, I think it's fair at this point.
Yep, that's totally fair in my opinion.
Nice.
Also,
okay.
You want to listen to this, whatever you want to call this?
Yeah, this is a very, very green fight.
This would be a great Contender Series co-main event.
Yeah, this is a Contender Series fight. Greg Hardy versus Juan Adams. I'm sure a lot of us know these guys, just because of some of the exposure Greg Hardy's had. Greg Hardy comes into this fight 1-1 inside the UFC. Like I said, both guys are very green. Both guys are very big. Both guys hit very hard. And this is just a mirror match, really. Some people would say Juan Adams has more grappling experience. I don't believe that. I know Juan Adams has had 3 or 4 years wrestling experience, but I'd have to say Greg Hardy's had at least that, if not very close to that. So once again, both guys are just at the same point in their career. Both guys hit very hard, and for most people, it's hard to pick a factor in this fight. Some people would say Greg Hardy, gassed against Alan Crowder, which he did. And I rewatched that fight last night, and my girlfriend actually pointed out, she's actually getting pretty good with UFC at this point. She's making a lot of great shouts, and she made a good shout last night. I rewatched that fight, and if people can remember correctly, in that second round, Alan Crowder really, really egged on Greg Hardy. He was putting his hands in his face, come on. And then he really went for it. And about 30 seconds later, that's when Greg Hardy threw that illegal knee. So most people have said it's down to inexperience, which it is. But at the same time, Alan Crowder got into an inexperienced man's head. So that little egging on really was, what made Greg Hardy throw that illegal knee. This is a weird fight. Both guys are very green. Both guys hit very hard. But my factor in this fight is I think Greg Hardy is very accurate with those big strikes. I think he's going to have faster hands than Juan Adams. And I think he's very, very accurate. And I don't like the way Juan Adams leaves himself exposed. I think his head is very hittable. And that's maybe the difference here. But it could be, Juan Adams somehow being alive in round 3, or even getting a TKO. Like I said, both guys hit very hard. It's a weird one, but I'm going to take Greg Hardy to get a TKO in round number 1.
All right. I will be breaking down to one, the Kraken Adams, 27-year-old, 6'5", 5-1 overall, coming off a WrestlePuck loss to Arshawn Bueller, which he had been prepping for what is a very different fight from here with Hardy. So these guys, like you said, really mirror each other a lot. Contender Series KO winners, giants, young in their career, powerful strikers, not much wrestling. This is a who the fuck knows fight for me as well. So originally, my snap thought was to take Adams. After looking into it more, watching the fights and how they match up, I actually do see Hardy being the more accurate striker, the quicker guy to the punch, and it being in Texas, it's a little bit of a hometown fight for Hardy, who played for the Dallas Cowboys when he played American football. So I think that Greg Hardy is going to be pretty comfortable here. He's had at least that many years of wrestling training at ATT, where he continues to get really good training partners and good instruction. And I will take Greg Hardy to get a round 1 TKO and look for the UFC to really try to promote this guy again. They're giving him all the chances in the world to have a huge stage. So
nice.
It's what it is.
And the odds are very close on this one, surprisingly.
They are. Yeah, the odds are originally they were with Juan Adams minus 155. It's now a minus 115 pick 'em each way.
Wow.
So,
the bookmakers really tried that one. 155 for Adams.
They tried to trick people into going Adams, and they quickly saw through it. So,
yeah. Wow.
Let's try bookmakers, but this one's probably going to be around to pick 'em, or if not, a favorite for Hardy by the start of the fight. So,
yeah, I agree.
From one weird heavyweight fight to another weird heavyweight fight, we have my boy Alexei Oleinik versus Walt Harris. Walt Big Ticket Harris. I will be breaking down my boy. Alexei, the boa constrictor Oleinik, now 42 years old, 57-11 overall, 8 TKOs and 45 submissions. That is 53 finishes and 57 fights that he's won. He's 6-3 in the UFC with 5 sub finishes and a KO for his 6th win. The guy is definitely a grappling master, especially with neck cranks and Ezekiel chokes. He takes massive damage along the way, however, but he is tougher. And again, he is tough, but against a guy like Harris, I think he's in some real damage and real danger of taking a lot of damage, I should say, especially the longer he doesn't get the fight to the ground here. Harris has some pretty decent holes, I think, in his game, but actually not in his sub game as much as I had kind of anticipated. So I actually could see Alexei surprising him while on the feet a little bit with a strike or two to get him off kilter, get him down for that submission. And if Oleinik gets a submission, no way I'd be surprised against anybody. As much as I want to pick it, I just don't know if I can here. Walt Harris is a real good athlete. He hits really hard. He moves really well for the division. And the guys he tends to struggle against are guys who can kind of hurt him more on the feet. If he's the more athletic and more dangerous guy on the feet, I've seen him look pretty comfortable at times. I think if it happens in the first round with Oleinik getting the sub. I think that Oleinik has to fight like he did the last 2 before the Alistair fight. The Alistair fight he fought really strangely. But I think Harris is much better than the other 2 guys Oleinik was able to sub prior to Alistair. So, yeah, and that being Mark Hunt and Junior Albini. So I actually rate Walt Harris as better than those 2, especially at the point in the career that Mark Hunt was at. So I'm going to take Harris to get a savage by TKO in round 2. I just think that Alexei getting to that main event in Russia against Alistair was the pinnacle for him, the Everest, so to speak. So I'll take Harris to get to the round 2 stoppage by TKO. Nice.
I agree with 100% everything you just said, with even the ending statement you just made. Walt Harris, 6-6 inside the UFC. Former basketball player turned into an MMA heavyweight. He's very athletic, very light on his feet for his size, and a dangerous guy. Just a dangerous guy. I'm a bit of a fan of Walt Harris, to be honest. And we look at his last fight against a young, undefeated heavyweight, and he just, destroyed him. So, your breakdown was spot on in my opinion. You want to take that submission win for Oleinik. And there's some fights you can do it in. I remember I took it for the Mark Hunt fight. And there's some you can do it in, and that's the way he wins. Like you said, 5 submissions, only 1 TKO. But I agree with you. I feel like he knows he's done. And you referred to his last fight being very strange, and it was strange for both guys. Like, I remember us talking after that fight, like, why didn't Alistair Overeem like pound his head in when he had a chance? It was really weird, that fight.
It was like sparring.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing I can say with Walt Harris, I mean, I will admit, I mean, if Oleinik comes out focused like Verdum did on just going for the submission, completely avoiding the strikes, and is successful, this could be over very early in round. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm betting that doesn't happen. That fight was what, 3 years ago. I think Walt Harris has improved a lot since then and learned a lot. So,
and I believe Walt Harris stepped in on very short notice on that one.
Yeah, it was like a day or. I mean, he was fighting someone else up until.
Yeah, that was it.
He was fighting Mark Godbeard up until right before the fight. Mm-hmm. So preparing for Mark Godbeard compared to fighting for Verdum is not exactly where you can base his sub skills on. So it's the only time he's been subbed.
So looking at that Oleinik and Overeem fight, it was weird, but like I feel like it was more weird because Overeem didn't want to hurt him. I feel like Oleinik really tried to, when he tried to press him up against the fence, I really believe that Oleinik was really trying. So to say he performed like that in the pinnacle of his career, like you described, is a bit surprising. We both took Overeem that night, so Overeem could have finished it a little earlier, but yeah, it's a weird fight. Oleinik's going to come out and try to do that again. I just think Walt Harris is going to hurt him, and hurt him very badly, very quickly, and Oleinik's going to go down and realize, I got the Ezekiel twice. I've got over, 50 submission wins, and that's it for him. He's aging now, and it's a strange fight. He could sub Walt Harris. Anything's possible, but I'm favouring Walt Harris round 1 TKO. And I believe that's like the 4th guy I'm taking now for a round 1 finish. So maybe some prop bets.
Yeah, so Oleinik is the underdog at plus 125. Walt Harris minus 155. So I think it could be one for Harris, but that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, the last 2 guys Harris has fought are nowhere near Oleinik's level. I'll say that. Spivak and Daniel something. What is that? I mean, exactly.
Yeah. I know who you're on about.
Okay. It's he did get that weird no contest with Arlovski, and then it was Daniel Spitz who he knocked out in the 2nd round. So, but either way, I like Walt Harris to get probably the best win of his UFC career so far. Definitely the best win of his UFC career, actually. So, we'll see, but we're on agreement, and we're on to the main event of the evening. So go ahead and lead us into that one.
Okay, I'll lead us in. RDA versus Leon Edwards. Edwards, I'm going to break him down, obviously. I'm English, he's English. Comes into this fight 9-2 inside the UFC. He's a very well-rounded guy, an intelligent grappler that doesn't use energy in positions that aren't working, unlike Kevin Lee. And just a very well-rounded 170er. He's on a win streak now. And he's just looking good. Like, he went 25 minutes with Donald Cerrone, and just looked great. He switches stances a lot. He fires body kicks that are just real heavy and nasty, popping calf kicks, and his boxing at range looks very good. I was at his last fight too, in London against Gunnar Nelson. He even took down Gunnar Nelson. Just a very intelligent fighter is what I'm seeing from Leon Edwards. And you look at RDA's start to 170. I'm going to try off at the top of my head, try and recall his whole career at 170 real quick. I believe he started with Safadine, couldn't finish him. Then I believe he got Neil Magny, where RDA was the grappler in that fight and looking stronger, which is surprising because you look at how Khabib dominated RDA and you look at how Colby and Usman dominated RDA in the wrestling, and then you see how Neil Magny is nowhere near strong enough for 170. And then I believe he got Robbie Lawler, where, Robbie Lawler's leg was very hurt that fight and he still couldn't get the finish. And then he got the two biggest tests at 170 in Usman and Colby. Wrestled in those two fights, and that was the difference. And then Kevin Lee, showing us how unintelligent he is, continuously trying for a single leg that isn't paying off, and still, going back to the same position. So this is a decent fight. I believe Leon Edwards is a natural welterweight. He's taller, he's longer. His conditioning looks very good. We've seen him go 25 minutes with a great Muay Thai specialist in Donald Cerrone. So for me, this is Leon's fight to lose. I do see him controlling the grappling too, but like I said, he's very intelligent. He's not going to look for takedowns. He's not going to look and force stuff. He'll simply hold RDA against the fence. And if you look at the Donald Cerrone fight, when he was holding Cerrone against the fence, that's where he done his most damage. Some of those elbows were just nasty. So Leon Edwards is, in my eyes, very intelligent. A bit of a bogey fact. Darren Till, I believe, was headlining in Texas against Woodley, and he got TKO'd, subbed, hurt viciously on the feet. And he's English, and that's where he lost. So Leon Edwards returning for he's English as well, returning to Texas, headlining. I'm going to say it's going to be different this time. I believe Leon Edwards has proven to me how intelligent he is, and I think he can win this fight wherever it goes. I think he pops a jab. I believe his body kicks are nasty, and I think he clinches whenever he wants to clinch. So I'll take Leon Edwards, and I'm going to take him to get... I think this goes the distance. I'm going to take a decision for Leon Edwards.
All right. I will be breaking down Rafael Dos Anjos, now 35. He is 29-11, so that's 40 MMA fights, 5 TKOs, 10 submissions in those wins. He's coming off the 2 straight losses to Colby and Usman, and then following that up with a fourth-round submission over Kevin Lee, where Kevin Lee just really disappointed me. But RDA was looking strong at 170 once again, returning to kind of the form early at 170, where he got a finish of Magny and had a dominant decision over a couple of guys. And Safdie and Lawler, you went over it pretty perfectly. I think this is a tough matchup, though, in Edwards. RDA just doesn't get a break from the matchmakers. He's always being around right at the top, and so he's always getting really tough matchups here, whether it's good wrestlers or really good, well-rounded guys in Edwards here. I would say Edwards, he almost is like a young mirror of himself, RDA. So in a lot of ways, they don't fight the same style, but pretty similar. I think each guy can do pretty similar things the other guy can do, but I think Leon can do it a little better. But like I say, he's been fighting top 10 guys at both 155 and 170 since 2014. And I just think this could be a 5-round battle. And I have to say, if RDA can beat Edwards here, it's such a huge statement to me. I think he should be right back in contention. Especially after what Edwards did against Gunnar. That was so impressive to me. Showed another level of Edwards' grappling game to go along with his good boxing, good kicks, good leg kicks. I think there's a huge fight to division. I'm going to go with Edwards here. I just think he's a little better, simply put. I hope that after this he makes a statement and gets ranked higher than fucking 11th. I think that's ridiculous. I can't stand the fucking rankings. Elizu Dos Santos is number 16 right now. That's fucking jokes. The rankings are shit. So just putting that in there. But this is a great fight, and RDA needs to use leg kicks and stay moving. I don't see how RDA will be able to finish this fight, so RDA's best shot is a decision, in my opinion. Edwards, I think he gets the TKO, actually, in the 4th round. I think he turns it up as it gets into the championship rounds. But I wouldn't be surprised if Edwards tries to really come out and make a statement early and try to get that Masvidal fight back into grasp, because right now that's a highly valuable fight. I don't see Masvidal fighting for the title, even though they're somewhat claiming that right now. I think that if Edwards make a huge statement, gets on and talks some mad shit, he can steal that Masvidal fight back, and it can be a huge fight towards the end of the year in November or so. So that's what I'd love to see out of Edward. That being said, I think it will be a good performance against a tough guy in RDA and a 4th-round TKO. So it'll be impressive, not impressive enough to get that Masvidal fight quite yet. So he'll have to hang on. But Leon Edwards is the favorite at -125. RDA at -105. RDA opened as the favorite at -135. So
they tried it again.
Yep, they tried a couple times to get tricky on this card, but didn't quite work. Great fight. Weird fight card, man. Weird fight card. My fight of the night, before you even ask, but thanks for asking, is it's got to be James Vick and Dan Hooker.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you.
And if not, Greg Hardy and Juan Adams for very different reasons.
Yeah. Like, I'm taking the round 1 in James Vick and Dan Hooker, but if that goes out the first round, that could turn into a crazy war.
And it may be round of the year if it just stays in one round unless Vick crumbles quickly. I don't see Hooker crumbling quickly, though. But we'll see. But weird card. It's a weird card when I just have to pick Bruce Leroy, Greg Hardy. Like, the roster of guys at least I didn't pick Modafferi, but she'll probably win. So, I mean, it's just it's an interesting card. We watch them all. This is one that I'm wondering why they decided to put on ESPN here in the States a little bit. But the main event's fantastic. And for all of you who've stuck around and understand that 2-12, 3-12 picks will happen, all of that will happen, we appreciate you. And we are hoping it does not happen 2 weeks in a row here. That would be pretty insane. But
it doesn't
enjoy the
happen
fights,
again.
everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you once again for listening. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the subscriptions and the unsubscriptions when they're earned and everything like that. But enjoy the fights and stay tuned as we add more interviews, insights, and whatever else Leyton's cooking up in his brain. But I'm out.
Just before we sign off, we are back next week with the pay-per-view in Canada. I know me and you have taken a quick look at that card, Brooks, and we're not too impressed with that pay-per-view, but we do love the sport, and we're going to cover it anyway because, we're interested in watching everyone fight, even if it is Alex Caceres. So, appreciate you all, and peace.
Peace.
That
God, that fucking card next week is such shit.